You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Life is so short. I'm encouraging anybody who's listening right now to put fear into the backseat. Acknowledge it. We're human, so we'll have some fear. I see you, but I'm the driver of this bus of my life. If you want to manifest that person that is aligned with you, you need to be showing up as your authentic self, because like attracts like.
And it's so important because it's that curiosity, isn't it? And I think that also is a bit of that fun in a way, because it's that idea of like keeping it fresh and recognizing there's always something new to learn about your partner. What do you say is one of the most important skills that you would want people to have in terms of relationships?
It is
Jaime Bronstein, as named by Yahoo Finance, the #1 relationship coach transforming lives. With over 20 years of experience, Jaime is a therapist, coach, and host of Love Talk Live on LA Talk Radio. She's appeared on ABC, NBC, and CBS News, sharing her expertise on self-love, vulnerability, and manifesting the right relationships. With degrees from Boston University, NYU, and a certificate in spiritual psychology, Jaime is here to help you create the love life you deserve. Stay tuned. As a relationship expert in today's modern world, what do you think are some of the barriers to people finding love and maintaining relationships?
So I have identified 3 common things that a lot of people have issues with that keep them from either manifesting love or having a good relationship, which are the following. One is doing the same thing over and over again without changing it up, without being insightful. And as we know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So that happens all the time with human beings, all the time. And so until somebody gets really conscious of, well, I am the common denominator in all these relationships. I'm always the one on the dates. Not that anybody's doing anything wrong, but it's just a matter of, like I said, being insightful and looking at maybe healing some unresolved issues that need to be healed, which actually is the second thing, which is people need to heal. They need to, not everybody, but some people have like big T trauma, little T trauma. Everybody has something that they need to work on.
Yeah.
So even though the first 2 seem similar, it's not necessarily. So doing the same thing over and over again without being conscious of it, not really being insightful. I mean, not really like looking inside. Now that can mean so many different things to the person, but it's important to do that. Second one is not dealing with unresolved issues that need to be healed. And these unresolved issues can come from something that a parent said to you when you were little, something from some kid in the sandbox when you were really little, or your past relationships. And so those are, we'll get into, maybe we'll talk today about negative narratives, changing those negative stories about yourself that aren't true. So people have not healed. And so it's impossible to show up as your authentic self, to manifest love, and or to be in a relationship that's successful. And then the third thing is intuition. People are not connected with their intuition, which means that they're just not connected with themselves, and they're not trusting of themselves. They have to ask a million people what they should do, and so I teach my clients how to cultivate a stronger intuition, to feel empowered, to trust. This is however I'm feeling, this is how I'm feeling, and I trust that.
I love that. So insight, healing, and intuition. And I wonder, what role do you think fear has to play in love, particularly in terms of, I guess, listening to that intuition and part of that healing process?
Yes. So fear holds people back. And that quote, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Yeah.
Life is so short. I'm encouraging anybody who's listening right now to put fear into the backseat. Acknowledge it. We're human, so we'll have some fear. I see you. Thank you for showing up, but I'm the driver of this bus of my life. And I know all you're trying to do is to hold me, you're trying to keep me safe. because the fear comes from our ego, our mind. So we just need to tap into our heart and trust that what we desire and what we know is meant for us is going to happen. So we need to take the chance, because if you don't take the chance of whatever this is that you need to take a chance on, nothing's going to happen. If you take a chance, something can happen. And if it doesn't happen this time, it will happen another time.
And, when you're talking, I was thinking about that idea of sort of like fear and vulnerability going hand in hand. And it reminded me of something in your book, because vulnerability is really all about, having that trust and being our authentic selves. And, in your book, when you were talking about authenticity, you were talking about you shared a personal story about you playing the role of Annie. And you sort of talked about, all the characteristics of Annie, such as resilience and positivity. And you talked about that really emulating who you were as a child. So that intense positive attitude towards life and positivity. And then you sort of discussed how, as for all of us, life happens and we have life experiences. And you use this analogy of dimming. So you talked about that positivity being dimmed for you. And I really loved that explanation, because I think so often when people think about this idea of trying to be themselves and, it's this kind of this quest for finding themselves. And I think about it's really not about finding yourself, it's about reconnecting with who you already are. And so that analogy of dimming just, really rang true for me, because it's almost like we want to turn the lights back up on those qualities that make us ourselves, those qualities that, we love about who we are. So can you tell me a little bit more about that role of authenticity in love and finding the one for you?
Absolutely. So when you are looking for, and my book teaches this, my book isn't about just finding any person, it's about finding the right one for you, the right man, manifesting. So, and in order to find the right person for you, and also anybody can read this book and just apply it to whoever you want to manifest. Guys can read this book, doesn't matter. Um, the thing about the law of attraction, which I talk about a lot in my book, is that if you want to manifest that person that is aligned with you, you need to be showing up as your authentic self, because like attracts like. So if you're showing up with these low vibrational feelings of feeling not good about yourself, your light has been dimmed, you don't feel like yourself, whatever it is, you're going to attract the match to that, which is not you. So in the work that I do, I teach in my book, I teach to my clients, that is that healing stuff, and it doesn't need to be deep and heavy, although sometimes it is. It's just about, like you were saying, and I agree, you're not you're not going to 2.0 of yourself, you're not changing, you're just getting back to who you actually are before life and relationships and craziness got in the way.
So what is your hope for people reading the book? Like, what do you hope that they take away from it?
So many things. I do have to say that getting back to intuition, the number one thing that changed my life. So I studied after my master's degree, I studied 3 years, not right after, but long time after, 3 years of spiritual psychology school. And so and it's wonderful. As a student, all the students, go through this learning of what you're going to teach. And so one of the greatest things for me was to become so empowered to truly, finally trust myself. And I felt like I could just run around that room of 200 students just because I felt so alive to finally, because I feel like my whole life, and this is so many people, they deal with this, you second guess yourself, whether it's in love or buying a pair of shoes. My parents love reminding me that when we were in London a long time ago, I couldn't decide between the Doc Martens with the yellow laces or the ones without the laces at all, okay? Yeah, was a fight.
I remember the Doc Martin days.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is a good example. So looking back, indecisiveness to me, it was only because I was like, well, what would Josh Ferrazano like more? Would he like, because that was the guy I had the crush on. Would he think these are cool? Would he think these are cool? And really all I had to do was what do I like? Or in general, what's more fashionable? It didn't matter. Like, what do I think are the cooler shoes? So in love, when you're dating, let's do dating and then relationships. When you're dating, I always tell my clients, think about, how do you feel on this date? Are you enjoying being there? Do you enjoy being with this person? And usually the crazy thing is that snap, it's not a judgment, but that snap feeling that happens when you first meet somebody
Yeah.
is the thing that is the predictor, really. So trust that initial gut feeling, because that is your intuition. And also on the opposite side of that, if that was good, also trust the red flags. And that goes for in relationship also. If you're already in a relationship, you need to trust how you're feeling. You need to share how you're feeling, and you don't need to ask a million people what you should do, because you always know what you need to do.
I know. I love that because I think that, in today's world with social media, we can be inundated with information of things that we need to look out for. And I think red flags are a really good example of that. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I read the long lists of, red flags that people highlight, some of them are just really their individual tastes. Like it's not even what we would consider a red flag in a relationship. And so I think people are so consumed with this gigantic list of things that they need to look out for, that they stop tuning in to what it is that they actually want and need. And as you said, like listening to their own intuition and just going with that gut feeling that they have in the moment. It's so important.
I was just looking at, I think when I was sending you my list of things I love talking about, I hadn't looked at it in a while. I usually just send it off. And I was like, I'm going to take a look and see, I wonder what, is on this list that I put together a long time ago. But one of the things was that I have an acronym for exactly what we're talking about, which is the non-negotiables, things that if you feel these things, it's a good sign. And it's CERT, so you can be certain that it can be good. So it's C is for comfort, E is for empathy. The person has empathy, empathetic. R is for respect, and T is for trust. Those are qualities that I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't want those things.
No, and I love those because you're not being prescriptive around like this particular behavior or this. It's more about like how you feel with that person. And that's what it's about, isn't it? Is like how you're feeling in that moment, how you're connecting with that person. That is what you want to listen to. And that is, yeah, coming back to your intuition. So I love that. I think that's such a great framework for people to really connect with what's happening with themselves in that moment and how they're feeling.
Yes. Thank you.
So in your book, I also love the way you laid out these different dating personas. And so what you're really talking here is about coming back to that idea of fear and our fear responses and our fear-based approaches to dating and how that actually gets in the way of finding not just a person, but really the right person for us. Because, it is about that idea that if we are not being our true selves, then we are attracting the wrong person. So can you talk to some of those different dating personas?
Sure. So my favorite one, not my favorite one that I had to go through, because I had to go through this, is the chameleon.
Yeah.
Chameleon is that person that changes for every person that they date. And one of the examples I used in my book is I was dating this guy and he loved scuba diving. And I had never been scuba diving. I actually, not that I was just scared of it, like in that we're talking about the fear, like just take the chance. In like I just have no desire, to do this. So, but I just wanted to spend more time with him. So I got certified for scuba diving. It was a lot of money, and then we had to go. This is in California. We went to Catalina Island, spent this whole weekend there. Had to do 2 or 3 dives. I was scared. I didn't like the feeling of just possibly dying. So I don't love doing things like that.
The fair thing, I think.
Yeah, for me, just didn't like. So that was totally a chameleon moment, and I plenty more. I've client stories as well. And the reason why it's so not healthy is because you're out of your integrity. That's something that didn't make me happy, but it made him happy. And I always say that in a relationship, compromise is okay, but not sacrifice. Compromise is when, like my mom always says, she's been to a million Cubs games with my dad because it makes him happy. Because they
Mhm.
live in Chicago. Okay. That's compromise. It's not out of her integrity. But when it's something that doesn't make you feel very good, that is that's being the chameleon, whether you start dressing differently or pretending you like certain things. So that's the chameleon. Don't do it. And you need to heal whatever needs to be healed. And one of the cures for that, and it's the cure for a lot of things, is to love yourself even more.
Mhm.
Just to hone in on what makes you happy, what you like, what you don't like, and honor that. And verbalize that to whomever you are with without the fear that they're going to leave you. Because, we were talking about the fear thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love the highlighting to that balance of because it is about understanding what are your own individual fear responses. So in the book you talk about, a few different, I think it's 7 different.
Yes.
7, is that right? 7 different, responses or approaches that we might have in dating. So this is all about our own individual ways of kind of coping with that vulnerability and that fear. And so really it's about people stepping through the book and kind of identifying that for themselves and in themselves. So I just love the way that you set that up because I think, something I'm passionate about and I know you're passionate about is making some of the information that we use in therapy more accessible to others. And the book is such an accessible way for people to understand these ways of being and how their behaviors or the way they're interacting may be getting in the way of their needs being met and getting in the way of the person that is right for them. So I absolutely loved the way that you had set that up in the book. And I'm just wondering, so someone is listening to this and they're sort of thinking, oh, yeah, that's me. Or, yeah, I can see how maybe some of my behaviors have gotten in the way of getting what I want in a relationship or finding the right person for me. What are some first steps that they can take to start connecting with themselves and, get back on track?
So in my book, the whole first chapter is about loving yourself unconditionally. And I kind of brushed over that a little bit so far. But what this means is that you love yourself no matter what. You've forgiven yourself for any mistakes you have made. Because a lot of people, their mistakes or bad choices have held them in the past. And so it frees you up to start to love yourself unconditionally. No, that means no matter what, you are not judging yourself. You are you know that you're imperfect because we all are. You love yourself for your imperfections. And this isn't a cocky thing. I call it self-full, not selfish. And that was actually from a teacher of mine, Rama. Years ago, I was taking a class from this lady, Rama Krishnan. And I think she was the one that said that, self-full, and ever since she said that, I've loved it because and you're also not, like, full of yourself, in that cocky way. You are just full, you're whole, and you're not living in the past. You're not showing up with wounds or negative narratives. You're healed, and also the thing about healing, don't worry. Don't feel like, "Oh my god, I need to heal more, I need to heal more." My spiritual psychology teachers, Ron and Mary, they are now in their 80s. Anyhow, they have so much wisdom, and they would sit up there while they were teaching us, and they'd say, "You're gonna be healing till you die. And if you're not, that means you're not consciously living. There's always going to be something to heal. So heal as much as you can, and also embrace the things that come along that challenge you that you need to heal again or heal
I
any."
love highlighted that point because I think there could be so much rhetoric out there about like you need to be all together, you need to have everything perfect before you get into a relationship. And I don't know about you, but working with couples, I really believe that so much of that healing can also be done in a relationship context. So obviously we want to be doing our healing ourselves, but also that when we get into that relationship, and maybe it is the first safe relationship that we've had, that is our first experience of accessing like a healthy attachment relationship, there can be so much healing and change that happens in the relationship itself. And obviously, that's different to being dependent on someone to heal us. But I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to be able to do all of the healing by ourselves, to, be able to meet all of our needs on our own. And the reality is, like, we are human beings that see connection and need connection in our lives.
Yes, and I would say as long as you are in a you wanna get to a joyful state, a peaceful state, no matter what is going on in your life, because when you are in that high vibrational place, that is how you manifest. So, you can still be in a joyful, peaceful place and find that and start existing like that, having more fun in your life, being present, and still have some things you need to heal. And then it is this beautiful thing because love is healing. And that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Love in it of in and of itself is healing. And so it's not that the other person is literally healing you. It's that the love and the feeling happy in this relationship, in this place is healing. The lady who wrote my forward, Ariel Ford, I interviewed her on my podcast years ago, and she didn't meet her husband till she was, like, 40 something, and she said that she feels like I love when that she said this, because if she said it, then it's true, that she said that her relationship was very healing, and I was like, "That is absolutely true."
Absolutely. And I think because part of it is that, yeah, there's so much change that happens in that context. And even when you're talking in the book, we're talking about changing in the context of our relationships. We're not just changing in a room on our own. We're putting that stuff into practice as you go on dates or as you're in the relationship setting. And I love the way that you talked about, you said selfful, not selfish, because I think that people can really struggle with this idea of acceptance and change, that we can accept, all the things that we come with. We can accept our feelings, we can accept our experiences, we can accept our past. And then we can also have insight about that and know the things that we need to change to get what we need in the present moment or to move forward from that. So it's that balance of kind of, loving ourselves for who we are and then changing the things that we need to become our authentic selves.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you are damaged or anything like that. I hate when people say they're broken. No one
Yeah.
no one is broken.
Yeah.
It is such a negative way to identify as that, and that is something that if the universe not if, the universe, life gives us what we focus on. So if you are focused on being broken, being a victim, whatever that is what the universe will validate and give you more of that. So, yes, notice the things that you love about yourself and everything, and the things that aren't as perfect. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Just some things that need a little work to be done with and to be looked at. And this also doesn't need to be, like I said, if you have a sense of humor about your life, it makes things so much better.
I know. We talked about that actually when we caught up, didn't we? The importance of humor in therapy. And I remember having a conversation recently with someone like, if I knew I could laugh in therapy, I would have gone earlier. And it's so funny that people have this idea of therapy being such a serious, and of course, like, there can be some intense emotions that we're dealing with in that space, but it's all so about having fun in that journey and enjoying that journey and finding the joy in that process as well.
Yeah, I mean, we are all such complex individuals, and when you bring 2 people together who are usually opposites, you have to laugh, like,
Yeah, still.
yeah, laugh at yourselves, but also it's like once you start laughing, it lightens up the mood, people's walls come down, and
Absolutely.
it's also cute, you know, the things that might have bothered one person about the other or both people about each other in a relationship. Once you start laughing at it, it actually can make you start to think it's endearing
Yes.
rather than
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah, that's so true, that's so true. It's such a simple shift, but it really does change the whole way that you not only see something, but the way that you feel about it, which is so important.
And also that just make me little quick note, it's making me think about triggers. So
Mhm.
a trigger is that's how you know you have an unresolved issue, and unresolved issue is anything that just is disturbing your peace. That's how you know you have an unresolved issue. When you get triggered by something that somebody says in a relationship or anywhere. And so if you can, instead of that person getting triggered and emotional and angry about that trigger, if you could verbalize how you're feeling, that's what you need to start with, which I'm sure you know, but whoever is listening, you get triggered. That was hurtful. I feel hurt versus you're such a horrible person. You just verbalize how you're feeling and then to bring some lightheartedness to whatever it is because so many times it's about the clothes on the floor. I mean, it's not about the clothes on the floor.
Yeah.
And about the clothes on the floor, or nobody's doing the dishes, or whatever somebody said that if you really look at it, it can be funny. Once you share how you're feeling and you get the emotion out, then you can have a good laugh.
Yeah, because as you said, it can be the smallest and sometimes the most unusual things that trigger that emotion. So it's about, yeah, being able to have a laugh at that, but also understand each other. I'm thinking about, in your book, obviously, we talked a lot about that idea of being ourselves and connecting with our authentic selves and removing some of those barriers to that. And I guess the other part of finding a relationship that's meaningful and fulfilling to you is really knowing what that looks like. And I know, in years of doing therapy myself, I ask couples this question a lot. So I ask them a few different questions to really understand what their idea of an ideal relationship looks like. Because as you and I know, it isn't about getting them to where we want them to go, it's about getting them to where they want to go and having the relationship that they want. But I found a lot of couples really struggle to identify what that looks like and also to identify couples that emulate the values that they do want in a healthy relationship. And I know you've had a lot of conversations with couples asking them about relationships and getting an understanding around what that looks like. So I wonder if you can share with listeners what you've learned as part of that process.
Yes, actually, just yesterday, I was working with a new couple, and both of them said that they did not grow up with parents in a happy relationship. I think both parents were divorced. Um, but not just that, they said they haven't really seen, they haven't had good mentors or good models of what a good relationship should be. And so obviously I'm going to do some psychoeducation. I'm going to do some actual teaching of
Yeah.
things. But at the same time, what I'm hearing you ask is that regardless, every couple wants different things. Every couple, different things will make them happy. Um, but when it comes down to it, I like to ask, what is it about this person that makes you want to be married? Okay, it might be just a relationship, not married, but let's just for the sake, whatever, we'll say that it's a married couple. Why did you choose this person to be married to? And so it gets them back to the positive qualities of why they chose this person. And I also ask them, why do you choose to be married in general? Or why do you choose to be in a relationship? So that's a good starting point because it gets people to really think about why are they even choosing to do this? And usually the answers will come from that. They'll say, it makes me happy to know that someone has my back, or I just love having fun with him, or I feel so loved when we're together, when we're not fighting, whatever they say. So
Yeah.
I like asking those questions because it makes it very specific to this couple. And they start to realize, oh, actually, I do have it inside to know how to have a beautiful relationship.
I love that because it can be so hard for people to connect with those qualities. What do you think are some of the things that are fundamental in a healthy relationship?
So it's so interesting. I was having this conversation yesterday, but I love when I get asked this question because I have a list of like 8 to 10 items. I don't know if I can rattle all them off right now. It's called like my ingredients for a happy marriage or for a happy forever marriage.
Yeah.
But I was having a conversation yesterday and I said my top one, and the client I was talking to, he was shocked because the my top one is fun. Yes. Yeah, do you need fun? And people get surprised because it's so underrated. But I will just give you an example of my parents who've been married for 53 years, and they have so much fun. They have fun together watching TV. They have fun at dinner themselves. They have fun with their couple friends. They have fun traveling. They have fun doing nothing. They have fun doing everything. They have fun in life and they have a sense of humor. So fun is huge. And I was interviewing couples years ago. I'm starting to do it again because I stopped because of my book. Working on a documentary, interviewing couples, and all the couples I interviewed, that was definitely one of the commonalities, fun. So, you need to have fun. You need to love each other unconditionally, which we've been talking about. Well, actually, we're talking about unconditional self-love. So unconditionally loving each other, same thing. No judgment. You you don't want each other to change. Pure acceptance of each other. Next one, you can't imagine being with anybody else. The next one, you have this intrigue with each other where you feel like there's always more to learn.
Yeah.
That sounds like so romantic and like from movies, but it's true. Like you can have that. Everybody can have that.
Absolutely. And it's so important because it's that curiosity, isn't it? And I think that that also is a bit of that fun in a way because it's that idea of like keeping it fresh and recognizing there's always something new to learn about your partner. There is always that excitement there if you have that curiosity in the relationship.
My mom learned that my dad can only wink with one eye, and that was a few years ago.
Wow.
There there's always more to learn. So also there is doing new things together to keep. And this
Yep.
means because when you do novel things together, going to a new place for dinner, going to a new place on vacation, this doesn't have to cost money. Walking a different route when you go on a walk. When you do novel things together, it increases your dopamine. And when that happens, it increases your testosterone. And men and women both have testosterone, and that leads to sexual desire. So the more new things you do together, it keeps things new and fun. And also, it's good for your sex life, and another thing on the list, obviously, is having a healthy sex life. Those are the couples would want to have sex because sometimes there's a sexless marriage, and that's okay. And then let's see. You just know that this person is your person, your best friend, your everything.
Oh, I love that list. And then I really like the idea that you put fun at the top of it because I find myself having the same conversation all the time with people. Because I think too, sometimes what can happen is when we do hit a bit of a roadblock in our relationship, is that's the first thing to go. And we're so focused on kind of solving the problem and fixing the relationship. And it's really important to have those tough conversations. But if you have no pleasure, if you have no happiness, if you have none of that positive sentiment, to draw on your relationship, it's really hard to have those conversations. It's really hard to give your partner the benefit of the doubt. It's really hard to be invested in listening to their perspectives. So, that fun is just so important in terms of obviously the life that we want to live, but also really important in terms of being able to have those more hard conversations and talk about things that may be a little bit more difficult in our relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, it's that lightheartedness. But I was going to say something about oh, just 2 more things. One is you feel peace in your heart, but that basically just means that you know that this is your person, which we talked about. And also that you are aligned with life goals and
Yes.
aligned with financial things. Like there and this doesn't mean that like you don't need to be you should be, I think opposites do attract. Aligned with a lot of things. Not necessarily you have the same political views, same religion, things like that. But if you when you do have differences, just respect that. But life goals and financial, I don't know what you've seen. I would say the top 2 things that I see are either lack of trust or financial issues in relationships. That's why people break up or get divorced. So financial money mentality, that is a very important conversation to have before you get married or if you're married and it's not going so well, because it can be such a relationship or marriage killer. It really can.
And Ken, it's interesting when you're saying that because I'm thinking I'd say the top two kind of taboo topics in relations and the most important things to talk about are finances and sex. And, people don't have those conversations early on in the relationship. And I think it's, as you said, it's not about being, you don't even have to spend in the same way. You don't have to have the same relationship with money, but it's about understanding that person's relationship with money. So understanding why is it important for them when they want to purchase this thing. And then finding those common values that you both have and coming back to that. And it's only through having that communication and getting to know each other and having that curiosity that we can start to, better understand one another and then be willing to compromise without sacrificing, as you said, of those things. Yeah, absolutely. It's so important.
Yeah, and just the life goals in general,
Yeah.
like, do you both love traveling? Do you not? And yes, of course, one person can be a homebody and the other person might not be, but this is beyond that. This is a mentality of, I would say, the person who's adventurous, who I'm not talking about bungee jumping, but just who wants to live life and travel. If they're with somebody who hates traveling, I don't
Yeah.
and it sounds silly, but this is a big deal.
It is a big deal because it's the lifestyle, like, I think about that, I say, like, what is your lifestyle that you want? What does that look like? How do you wanna spend your every day? And if the person that you're spending your every day with doesn't wanna spend it in the same way, then it's not really gonna work. But that's not to say, as you said, those differences are still important. So, for example, your partner could love sports and maybe you enjoy sports, but you're not into it as much. But for them, like, they love going with their friends anyway, so it doesn't impact the relationship, and then it can actually meet maybe another need of yours where you get some individual time. But it's about understanding that. So it's about understanding, is this thing something that we need to be doing together in the everyday to meet that need? Or is it something that we can coexist with and still both of our needs are met around what our life looks like and what we want from it? I love that.
It's again,
Uh,
every couple is so different, so it's whatever works for each couple.
exactly, exactly. I wanted to ask you, so, you have such a wealth of experience. You have been a relationship expert for over 2 decades now. If there was one skill, or what would you say is one of the most important skills that you would want people to have in terms of relationships, or to learn rather, not to have?
So hard to
So what do you think is one of the most important skills that you think we should learn in terms of
Okay,
relationship?
got it. It is listening, truly listening to each other, because when you do that, the other person will feel seen and heard and validated, and that is, like, a beautiful gift because in life, we all wanna feel seen and heard and validated. So, if you can do that in your relationship, then it's a beautiful gift to give each other. And so the skill those are the skills, and then the feeling thing would be the empathy, I guess. Empathy and compassion, which means there's no room for judgment. And
Mhm.
when there's judgment, you can't connect. So just no judgment. Well, that's the opposite of what you're saying. You didn't ask what you shouldn't have. You asked what you should have. So, yes, I answered your question. That's my answer.
Feel too. Like, I think sometimes when people think about relationships, and that's why I corrected myself earlier when I said have versus learn, because it is really about learning these skills. And I think, even with something like empathy, we can assume that we just don't have it. Like, I don't know if you found that when people come to therapy, it's sort of like, oh, I want my partner to be more empathetic. And the partner might sort of communicate, I just don't know how to do that. Or that's just not me. And it's like, well, you haven't learned that yet. So you haven't learned that skill yet, but there's a desire there, and I think that's the part around the communication, is that partner desires, they want to be empathetic, express the empathy towards their partner. They're feeling it, but they're having difficulty in, like, how do I communicate that? What does that look like? And so I think it's so important that people understand that these are skills that we learn in life, and doing things like reading your book or going to therapy are the ways that we develop those skills and we become better partners and we have more fulfilling relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to do the work. And if the thing is, if you need to have both parties need to have the willingness to make it work in order to make it work. And that's what I do tell my couples. It gives them hope from their first session. I will say, I'll say, okay, we've had the session. Intuitively, I'm very intuitive. Here's the great news. I see a bright future for you guys. No, what I say is, I see no reason why this can't work because you both have the willingness to make it work. And that's all you need. I also say, if you had it once, you can bring it back. Meaning, like, they're in a bad snafu place,
Yeah.
but they can get back. You can always get back to where you were if you have the willingness. And even in cases of infidelity and things like that, I was quoted I think it was a New York Post article or New York Times, I can't remember. It was a few years ago, and there was a couple. The story was about a couple, and I think the headline was that infidelity made their relationship stronger and better. And not that this is gonna happen every time. I'm not telling people to cheat. Don't do that. Not an advocate for that. I don't judge though. However, but the reason why it helped, it's because it brought upon, like, if it didn't happen, it wouldn't have brought upon this communication, this for them. Other couples are like, "We need to go to couples therapy." Sometimes people are like, "Someone needs to cheat." Who knows? So, because I was thinking, my statement was, if two people have a willingness, and then the thought that came to me was somebody might be thinking, but even with infidelity, and I do believe, yes, because it's about the going deep inside, and if you have the willingness, that means that you do love this person unconditionally. There was that strong foundation. It can come back. Now, I this isn't judging, but if it is a situation where it's like a repeat offender, repeat offender, sometimes it's a little harder to bounce back from, but that's a different situation.
Absolutely, and what you're highlighting there is that willingness, and I've experienced that too when working with people after a betrayal, but, it's that process that they go through after because there is so much, change, so much rawness, and going to such a deeper place and connecting in a way often that they haven't ever before. So I think that's what you're also referring to is that process of what happens after. That doesn't happen in every relationship because not everyone is willing to do the work. So, just the act obviously of having an affair is not going to deepen your connection, your relationship. But what you're talking about is that this has just been the precursor to the next piece, which has been doing that work to really deepen their connection and to have better communication and to build a relationship that they haven't had previously. And I agree, whether it be an affair, whether it be disconnection, whether it be sex life, whatever it is that brings you to that space when you're struggling in your relationship, it's the willingness for from both people to do that really is the predictor of what's going to happen in the relationship and how well it's going to go. And I think also the other important point, and I'm sure you've experienced that too, is that sometimes that willingness can look a little hesitant because of that vulnerability. So even though we may be willing, we may not have the roadmap to know how to step into that space. And so that's where something like therapy or accessing your book can be really helpful because you're giving that framework for, okay, what's happening with me in this moment and how can I shift that and how can I step into this space of vulnerability and
Yeah.
authenticity.
And vulnerability is, once again, just like empathy. Some people are better at it than others, but it's within you, just like intuition. You just need to cultivate a stronger one, and sometimes you need to learn how to even do it, how to be vulnerable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the conversation. It's been so insightful, and I know people will be taking so much away from this. How can people connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yes, so my website is therelationshipexpert.com, the way it sounds. My Instagram is at the relationship expert, but there's no E at the beginning of the word expert. So the relationship, letter X, PERT. My podcast is Love Talk Live. My book is Manifesting. It's a step-by-step guide to attracting the love that is meant for you. And I work with clients all around the world. So if anybody would like to work with me, I offer 15-minute complimentary consultations. So you can email me at Jamie, the relationship expert at Gmail, and it's JAIME. Or I was going to say call, but you're not going to call me if you are in Australia. Or no, where are you? You're in Indonesia.
I'm actually in Indonesia, but I'm in Bali. There's sticky emails based all over the world, so they
And your listeners are all over. Um, Maybe best to DM or email me depending on where you are in the world because it might be expensive to make a call.
in Bali here we use WhatsApp.
Okay. Also, I am offering my free gift which is 7 days of manifesting love. It's affirmations and exercises, and you will get that if you sign up. So if you just include the link in the show notes, sign up for that, and you will get inspired. Why not?
Thank you so much, Jamie. And I highly encourage you to reach out to Jamie and to read her book because it is fantastic. And it's such a simple step-by-step process, really, to better understanding yourself and finding your way to the right person for you. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
Subscribe for more conversations filled with new insights, inspiration, and practical tools to create a life you love.